If you can't stop thinking about someone you were never really with, even though nothing official ever happened, pay very close attention to what I'm about to tell you, because this isn't about weakness or desperation. It's about how your brain processes emotional possibilities. Before we dive deep into this, if you're ready to understand the psychology behind your emotions and stop feeling confused about what you feel, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because we're about to explore the neuroscience and behavioral patterns that explain exactly why this happens. According to psychology, what you're experiencing is called phantom attachment. It's when your brain bonds not with the reality of who someone is, but with the potential of what could have been. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between lived experiences and vividly imagined ones. When you replay scenarios in your mind, when you construct conversations that never happened, when you imagine futures that were never promised, your brain releases the same neurochemicals as if those moments were real. Neurologically, your dopamine system is heavily involved in this process. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's about anticipation, possibility, and reward prediction. Every time you fantasize about what could happen with this person, your brain gets a dopamine hit. It's the same mechanism that keeps people hooked on gambling. The uncertainty itself becomes addictive because your brain is constantly chasing the possibility of reward. The amygdala and hippocampus store emotional memories. Here's what most people don't realize. These brain regions can't tell the difference between something you experienced and something you intensely imagined. That conversation you rehearsed 100 times in your head, that moment you pictured where they finally say what you've been waiting to hear, those imagined experiences create real neural pathways, real emotional imprints, real memories. This is why losing someone you were never with can hurt just as much as losing someone you were actually in a relationship with. To your nervous system, the loss is identical. You're not being dramatic. You're not overreacting. Your brain genuinely processed those imagined possibilities as real potential outcomes. Psychologically, phantom attachment often forms when unmet needs for love, validation, or security become projected onto an idealized version of someone. You're not actually missing them. You're missing what they represented, the hope they gave you, the version of yourself you imagined being with them, the life you constructed in your mind where everything finally makes sense. Behaviorally, this pattern shows up in specific ways. You overanalyze every interaction you had with them. A text message from 3 months ago still lives in your mind. You search for hidden meanings in things they said. You convince yourself there were signs, moments, glances that meant something deeper. Your brain is trying to create evidence that supports the narrative it's already committed to. People who develop phantom attachments often have anxious attachment styles. This means your nervous system is hypervigilant to signs of connection and terrified of abandonment. When someone shows you even minimal attention, your brain latches onto it, not because you're needy, but because your attachment system is wired to seek certainty in uncertainty. Every small interaction becomes monumental because you're starving for emotional security. There's also a self-protection mechanism happening here. Sometimes it's safer to be attached to someone you never had than to risk being vulnerable with someone who's actually available. Phantom attachment keeps you in fantasy, which is controllable. Real relationships are messy, unpredictable, and require you to be seen fully. The person you're fixated on doesn't challenge you, doesn't reject the real you, doesn't disappoint you. They remain perfect because they remain imaginary. From a behavioral psychology standpoint, you're also likely engaging in intermittent reinforcement. This person probably gave you just enough attention to keep hope alive, but never enough to create actual commitment. Maybe they texted you late at night sometimes. Maybe they were affectionate when it was just the two of you, but distant in public. Maybe they said things that felt intimate, but never followed through with action. This inconsistency is one of the most powerful psychological hooks that exists. Intermittent reinforcement is the same principle that makes slot machines so addictive. When rewards are unpredictable, your brain stays in a state of constant anticipation. You keep playing, keep hoping, keep investing, because the next interaction might be the one where everything clicks into place. But it never does, and that uncertainty keeps you trapped in a cycle of longing. Neuroscientifically, your prefrontal cortex knows this doesn't make logical sense. It knows you should move on. It knows this person isn't thinking about you the way you're thinking about them. But your limbic system, the emotional center of your brain, overrides logic. Emotional memory is stronger than rational thought. This is why you can tell yourself 100 times to let go, but the feeling doesn't budge. Here's the part most people miss. Phantom attachment isn't really about the other person at all. It's about you. It's about what you needed to believe was possible. It's about the story you told yourself about who you could become if only this person saw you, chose you, loved you the way you imagined. When you lose that possibility, you're not grieving them. You're grieving the version of your future that you built around them. Psychologically, this often ties back to childhood experiences. If you grew up with inconsistent emotional availability from caregivers, your brain learned that love is something you have to chase, earn, or wait for. You learned that attention is scarce and unpredictable, so when someone shows you fleeting interest, your nervous system recognizes that pattern and thinks, this is what love looks like. It feels familiar, even though it's painful. Behaviorally, people stuck in phantom attachment often avoid pursuing real, available connections. They stay fixated on the unavailable person because it allows them to avoid the vulnerability of real intimacy. Real relationships require you to risk rejection. Real relationships require you to be imperfect and still be chosen. Phantom attachment lets you stay safe in longing without ever having to face the possibility of not being enough. The truth is, the person you're missing isn't the real them. It's the idealized version you created. You filled in the gaps of who they are with who you needed them to be. You assigned meaning to silence. You interpreted their distance as mystery rather than disinterest. You convinced yourself that their inability to commit was just bad timing, fear, or circumstances, when really it was choice. From a cognitive psychology perspective, your brain is also engaging in something called confirmation bias. You remember every moment that supports the idea that there was something special between you. You remember the time they laughed at your joke, the night they opened up to you, the way they looked at you once. But you conveniently forget or minimize all the times they were distant, unavailable, or showed you through their actions that they weren't interested in anything real. This selective memory keeps the fantasy alive. It allows you to stay in a loop of hope that's completely disconnected from reality. You're not remembering the person accurately. You're remembering the version of them that fits the story you want to believe. Socially, phantom attachment can also be reinforced by how we consume media and storytelling. Every movie, song, and book romanticizes the idea of unrequited love, the one that got away, the person who was almost yours. We're culturally conditioned to believe that the most profound love is the one that never fully happens, that longing is more romantic than having, that suffering for someone proves the depth of your feelings. But that's a narrative, not reality. Neurologically, the pain you feel is real. Emotional pain activates the same brain regions as physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex and the insula light up when you experience social rejection or loss. Your brain doesn't differentiate between a breakup and a broken bone in terms of how it processes pain. This is why it hurts so much. Your body is genuinely in distress. But here's what you need to understand. The pain isn't proportional to what you actually lost. It's proportional to what you imagined you lost. You're grieving a future that never existed. You're mourning a relationship that was never real. And your brain is processing that imagined loss as if it were tangible.
Psychologically, healing from phantom attachment requires you to grieve not just the person, but the version of yourself you imagined being with them. You have to let go of the fantasy. You have to stop checking their social media, stop replaying old conversations, stop waiting for them to realize what they're missing. You have to accept that the story you wanted isn't the story that's happening. Behaviorally, this means redirecting the energy you've been investing in someone unavailable and putting it into your own life. Real confidence, real emotional security, real fulfillment doesn't come from being chosen by someone else. It comes from choosing yourself. It comes from building a life that doesn't need someone else's validation to feel meaningful. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is realizing that if this person wanted to be with you, they would be. There's no amount of timing, circumstances, or fear that stops someone from choosing a person they genuinely want. If they're not showing up, it's not because the universe is testing you. It's because they're showing you through their actions that they don't want what you want. And that's information, not rejection. Neuroscientifically, breaking phantom attachment requires you to interrupt the dopamine loop. Stop feeding your brain the fantasy. Stop imagining the reconciliation. Stop creating scenarios where they come back. Every time you do that, you're reinforcing the neural pathways that keep you stuck. You have to starve the pattern by refusing to engage with it. Psychologically, you also need to examine what this attachment is protecting you from. Are you using this person as an excuse not to be vulnerable with someone who's actually available? Are you avoiding intimacy by staying fixated on someone safe because they'll never actually get close enough to hurt you? Are you using longing as a way to feel something, anything, because numbness feels worse? From a therapeutic standpoint,
People who struggle with phantom attachment often benefit from exploring their attachment history. Understanding how your early relationships shaped your beliefs about love, worthiness, and connection can help you see why you're drawn to unavailable people. It's not random. It's a pattern your nervous system learned a long time ago. Behaviorally, you also need to practice reality testing. When you catch yourself romanticizing this person, ask yourself what evidence you actually have that they feel the same way. Not what you hope they feel, not what you think a glance or a text might have meant. What have they actually said or done that proves they want to be with you? If the answer is nothing concrete, you're living in fantasy. The shift happens when you stop asking why they don't want you and start asking why you're willing to accept so little. Why are you convincing yourself that breadcrumbs are enough? Why are you okay with being an option instead of a priority?
Why are you investing your emotional energy in someone who isn't investing theirs in you? Those questions reveal far more about your relationship with yourself than they do about the other person. High-value people don't wait around for someone to decide they're worth committing to. They don't chase people who are half in, half out. They don't romanticize emotional unavailability. They recognize their own worth, and they move toward people who recognize it too. They understand that real love doesn't require you to convince someone of your value. Real love shows up clearly, consistently, and without ambiguity. Here's the truth most people avoid. You're not in love with this person. You're in love with the idea of being chosen. You're in love with the validation you think their commitment would give you. You're in love with the relief you imagine you'd feel if they finally saw you the way you see them. But none of that is about them. It's about what you think their love would mean about you. Psychologically, this is called external validation dependency. You've tied your sense of worth to whether or not this specific person chooses you. But your value isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Their rejection doesn't mean you're not enough. It means they're not your person. And staying attached to someone who isn't your person is blocking you from meeting someone who actually is. Neurologically, the longer you stay in this pattern, the deeper the neural pathways become. Your brain starts to associate longing with love. It starts to believe that if it doesn't hurt, it's not real. It mistakes anxiety for attraction and unavailability for mystery. You start to think that ease and consistency are boring because your nervous system has been conditioned to equate love with chaos. Breaking free from phantom attachment isn't about forgetting the person. It's about seeing them clearly. It's about recognizing that the version of them you're attached to doesn't exist. It's about accepting that you created a story that was never real. And it's about having enough self-respect to stop waiting for someone who's already told you through their actions that they're not coming. The most powerful thing you can do is let go of the narrative that there's something wrong with you because this person didn't choose you. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable. Maybe they're not ready for what you're offering. Maybe they're dealing with their own patterns and wounds. Or maybe they're just not the right person for you. And that's okay. You don't need to be chosen by everyone. You just need to be chosen by the right person. Real love doesn't leave you confused. It doesn't leave you wondering where you stand. It doesn't require you to decode mixed signals or wait around hoping someone will finally show up. Real love is clear. It's consistent. It's reciprocal. It shows up not just in words, but in sustained, committed action. Anything less than that isn't love.
It's a distraction. If someone came to mind while watching this, don't tag them in the comments. Don't send this to them hoping they'll realize what they're missing. Instead, let this be your wake-up call. Let this be the moment you decide to stop giving your energy to people who don't value it. Let this be when you choose yourself. Because the right person won't make you question whether they want you. They'll make it so obvious that doubt isn't even possible. And that's the kind of love worth waiting for.